It's sort of fun to speak to you because who wouldn't enjoy talking about one's son, particularly when he's about to be presented the Cecile Hatfield Award. She was indeed a very, very special lady and a dynamic force, and thus it's fun to talk to you about her, and of course to have one's son be the recipient of one of the awards this year. Lee and I were both born in New York. We lived all of our lives in New York. Though Lee, as you probably know, traveled all over the world in connection with his work, and I was very fortunate to have joined him on many of those trips, as indeed did Jim and Laurie. Lee and I met many moons ago, though in some ways it seems like yesterday. We met at a dance. We were there, each of us were there with different people.
Jim's mom, Ruth, and his dad, Lee, and his sister, Laurie, provided Jim with a solid, loving family as a sturdy platform for both his personal and professional development. Jim was born and raised in New York. He knew and appreciated that he was fortunate to attend academically challenging schools since he was a gifted student, and to have a father whose foundational work in the air disaster law demanded extensive world travel in which the family was included. Travel to China, Japan, Yugoslavia, Ghana, and more.
Sometimes if you go to a new place, you're worried about your teenage daughter. In this particular location, we were more worried about Jim because all the ladies had their eye on him, and the tribal chief offered Lee something like 100 of his best cattle, bales of cotton rather, in return for Jim's marriage to his daughter, a lady named Doris. But since Jim was underage at the time, Lee very respectfully declined that offer.
The travels gave Jim at an early age the appreciation for other peoples and other cultures, as well as exposure to important legal experiences, like the World Peace and Law mock trial held in Belgrade that Lee Kreindler organized, Jim assisted with, and Warren Berger participated in as the United States representative. Jim's grandfather Harry and father Lee founded Kreindler & Kreindler in 1950. Their first air disaster case arose from a 1952 crash of a national airline, DC-6, in New Jersey. Lee came up with a theory about the failure of one of the four propellers after going to work in a maintenance shop to educate himself on the plane's design. Lee's theory convinced the jury. The $300,000 in damages awarded was then the highest award in an air crash suit. This was the start of something big. The start of a firm that came to specialize in air disaster litigation, and a firm that, in the last 64 years, has represented plaintiffs in most major air disaster litigations. Jim joined Kreindler & Kreindler in 1983 and became a partner in 1987. He graduated magna cum laude from Dartmouth and completed his JD degree at Columbia University in 1980.
I've known Jim for over 42 years, having first met him when we were both freshmen on a hiking trip welcoming new students to Dartmouth College in September of 1983. Roommates at Dartmouth and again at Columbia Law School, the two of us have no secrets between us. In our adult life, I have seen Jim enjoy many professional successes, and in our personal life, we have seen each other through good times and bad times. Throughout the long course of our friendship, I have come to appreciate certain characteristics that he has. Jim is invariably amiable. He is easy to be with and truly enjoys other people. Friendships and relationships mean everything to him. Jim is fun. He loves a good dinner, a good show, a good conversation, and has a big laugh. Jim is tremendously loyal. With Jim, once a friend, always a friend. And Jim is honest. He looks hard at himself and sees the essence of others quickly. Jim is the brother that I never had.
Jim's friends, his education, his character, and his family, especially his three lovely daughters, Katie, Jamie, and Victoria, have been essential to his many professional successes.
So I've known Jim, it's like 35 years now. We were both associates at the firm. He had worked at the DA's office in Brooklyn and came in and was working on tort cases. And it wasn't until the Lockerbie case when I first really saw Jim's abilities. You could hear a pin drop in the courtroom when he was talking about the damages of the three young children of this man who was killed in the disaster. You know, in that case, he was able to establish a record for damages for parental care and guidance in that type of case. And it was really a remarkable achievement on his part at that time. That was 1988, it started. And of course the case lasted for over 20 years in different forms. But the first phase of the case was against the airline. And there we had to get around the Warsaw Treaty limitation to prove willful misconduct of the airline. After we won the case against Libya, you know, as I said, Jim tried one of the damage cases, won really historic damage award in that case. We then went on against Libya, and it was an effort that Jim really spearheaded, along with his dad, who played the lead role until he died. But after Lee's death, Jim really pushed and got the settlement done. And I think through the whole process, it was something that a lot of people thought never could happen, that the Libya case would never pay off, that there'd be never any result or resolution, or they'd never admit to responsibility of any kind. And after literally years of negotiation and work all over the world, it finally came to fruition. I think it's due in large part to Jim's efforts.
Jim has played a key role in many other notable airline disaster cases, including the 1990 Egypt Air 990 crash as a member of the executive committee of the Plaintiffs' Steering Committee, the 1998 Swiss Air Flight 111 disaster in Nova Scotia, in which he served as a Plaintiffs' Committee member, the TWA Flight 800 disaster off Long Island, in which the Second Circuit Court of Appeals found that the crash had not occurred on the high seas, as that term is defined in the law, and that therefore the restrictive Death on the High Seas Act did not limit plaintiffs' damages. TWA 800 ultimately caused Congress to modify the Death on the High Seas Act to provide for non-economic damages. And the 2009 Colgan Air 3407 crash in Buffalo, New York, as chairman of the Plaintiffs' Committee.
The most significant thing in recent years that Jim has worked on is a 9/11 litigation. Just as he did after the Lockerbie disaster, Jim made a commitment to the 9/11 victims that he would pursue those countries and those individuals and those organizations that supported the terror, supported Al-Qaeda, and attempted to get justice from them. And he is, for the last 14 years, almost 15 years now, has pursued that goal.
Jim is a frequent lecturer on aviation accident litigation and terrorism throughout the world. He is the only plaintiff's attorney, other than his father, who has been asked to lecture at International Airline Transportation Association meetings.
You know, one of the things that defined Lee Kreindler was his love of not just the law, not just the firm, but also his primary love, which was for his family. And Jim Kreindler really has the same sort of love and appreciation for his family.
According to Jim's fiancée, Ann, Jim is a wonderful father and a loyal friend, whose success is attributed to his observable passion and a dedication to finding justice for his clients. But in Jim's own words, "I don't have any other talents except being a lawyer. This was about it. I wasn't about to be the starting pitcher for the Yankees."